So we're back. We're going to be working on our social studies read aloud, Guns for General Washington. We're going to read chapter 9 together, titled News and Rumors. There are two words that I want to go over when we get to them. They're the words barracks and schooner. So when we get there, we'll talk about what those words mean. But for now, just grab your book, open to chapter 9. It starts on page 56, and then we can get started together. Okay, ready to go? Let's begin. Somewhere across town, church bells began to ring. Finishing his breakfast of biscuits and cheese, Paul listened. So we're back to Paul Revere Jr. That would be King's Chapel, he decided, over on Tremont Street. Probably a funeral for another smallpox victim. These days, the bells tolled often for the dead. The pox was everywhere, striking people without regard for their politics or for history. Tory and Whig, Royalist and neutral, everyone was fair game for the deadly sickness. It's sort of poignant right now. History likes to repeat itself. What can I say? Gone away, moaned the church bells. Gone away, gone away, gone away. Paul gathered the leftovers of his breakfast and put them in a tin box. Nobody in Boston wasted a single bite of food, no matter how small it might be. Farewell, cried the bells. Farewell, farewell. In the old days, Paul thought church bells had sounded different. He had loved to hear them calling across the rooftops. Even on sad occasions, they rang out strongly, serenely, full of life and hope. Now it seemed that they were always dull and gloomy, as if mourning for a dying city. That's very dark, written in a very dark way. Paul pulled a jacket, grabbed his cap, and slipped out of the house, locking the door behind him. Crossing Fish Street, he passed a company of redcoats standing at rest. Remember, who were the redcoats? That's right, they are the British soldiers. And they were called that for their red uniforms. Their muskets slanted carelessly every which way. Sullen and bored, they glared at Paul with cold eyes. Why would they do that with Paul? Who was his father? That's right, Paul Revere. And Paul Revere was one of the 3 men who went on the midnight ride to warn the colonists that the British were coming to Lexington and Concord, which was, in the end, the first battles of the American Revolution. All right. Their musket... I read that. The boy looked at the other way and tried to appear small and unimportant. He hated the British for making him feel weak and fearful, and despised himself for giving in to those feelings. Take care, warned the bells. Take care, take care. So the author is giving these bells a voice. What kind of figurative language would that be? That's right, if you said personification, that's what it is, because do bells really speak? No, but we're giving it the ability to. That's what writers do. He walked quickly past Faneuil Hall, once the main public market, and now a barracks for housed Marines. So there's that first word, barracks. So if you are not familiar with this military term, it just pretty much means the bunkhouses for the soldiers to sleep in. So they turned the marketplace as a place for the redcoats to sleep at night. Okay? Partway down the Merchant's Row, he turned and walked out on Long Wharf. This great pier stretched 2,000 feet into the Boston harbor, was a wonder of engineering, admired all over the colonies. Once it had been a busy meeting place, the center of Boston's shipping trade. Here in earlier days, contracts were signed and precious cargoes bought and sold. Along the north side of the wharf were warehouses, shops, and business offices. The south side of the pier had been left free for the docking of sailing ships. Even at low tide, the wharf could handle the biggest schooners on the Atlantic Ocean. So that's the second word I wanted to talk about. The word was schooners. Now this, what do you think it is? I'll give you a moment. If you said boat, a type of boat of some sort, then you're correct. So, I actually went ahead and printed out a picture of one. So these are what schooners looked like back then. Okay, they still exist today, but not as often used. Okay? Today, as usual, the breaths were unused, except for a small cutter flying the British flag. The shops and offices were dark and empty. Some of them had been boarded up for safety, but the planks had been torn off long ago and used for fuel, and so had the furniture inside. So didn't really protect the shops, but they tried. Here and there on the pier, Paul saw small groups of people, their faces worn and their clothes shabby. With Boston trapped in Howe's blockade, citizens were often gathered on the wharf to hear the latest news and rumors, hence the title. Paul moved among the different groups, searching for a face. His eyes brightened. Near the south end of the pier, he spotted old Toby, sitting against a wooden piling, holding a fishing pole. When Toby showed up on the long wharf, it usually meant interesting gossip. So Paul strolled over and sat next to the boatman, his long legs hanging over the platform. Without turning his head, Toby touched his battered, shapeless hat. So he went like this. No. The hat had once belonged to a ship's captain, and since Toby was a man of the sea, he felt entitled to wear it. "Morning to you, Master Paul." Paul nodded. "Morning to you, Toby. How are you faring?" Toby made a face. "Well enough, thanky, except for an empty belly." "You might have some luck with your fishing," Paul said. The old boatman shrugged. "I've got powerful fat worms on my hook. Mayhap I catch a bite, if the redcoats haven't fished the harbor clean." They sat for a while side by side, and Paul waited patiently. When Toby had news, he would share it in his own way, in his own good time. He moved the pole about in the water, then cleared his throat. Did you ever hear tell of a Captain John Manley?" Paul nodded. "Curious. A privateer, isn't he? Licensed by a council to go after British vessels?" Toby grunted. "Aye, that be he. Commands an armed brig called the Lee. Words come that he's captured a British supply ship, the Nancy, out on Boston Bay. Took the ship, put a prize crew aboard, and sailed her into Cape Ann. Washington sending 4 companies to get the cargo and carry it down to Cambridge." Were there good pickings?" Paul asked. "The best, lad. The Nancy was carrying munitions, 2,000 muskets, plenty of round shots, flints, musket balls, even a grand 13-inch brass mortar. When they hauled the monster ashore, old General Putnam christened it with the flagon of rum." So, on the ship that was captured, the ship that was called Lee, they were able to capture what? Yes, what they were looking for. What were the Americans colonists looking for? Were weapons, because the British had better weapons than them. So this will help the colonists in their pursuit for freedom. And Putnam, he christened it with a flagon of rum. So do you know what that means? I'll give you a second to try to guess. Okay, if you haven't guessed it by now, a flag to christen something, think about ships. How would they, when there was a brand new ship, what would they do? They would hit it with a bottle of champagne to give it a good voyage. Well, he just dunked a cup of rum all over the cannon just to say, yay, we got one. No, I don't know if it's the best choice, but they were happy. Let's continue. Paul smiled. A 13-inch mortar? Lord, wait till the British get a taste of that. We'll have a long wait, Toby grumbled. There's nearly enough powder to fire it. The boy frowned. So they got the weapon, but no way of firing it. For weeks now, he'd heard rumors that the army was very short on gunpowder. One more battle and the supply would be gone. It was worrisome, if the rumors were true. Words come, Toby added, that powder's on the way from France and Spain. Because remember, who went to France to get help for the American colonists? If you said Benjamin Franklin, you guys are going to be okay for that social studies test, which is coming up. And a new powder mill's being built here in Canton. Your pa's been put in charge, and he got old Jim Otis, the powder master, to help him. But it will be months before they get it turning out enough powder to supply everyone. Silently, they watched the British patrol frigate as it beat its slow way across the harbor. Then Paul asked, Any news of my friend Will Knox? Toby spat into the water. He looked around carefully before answering. Then he grinned. He and the colonel have took themselves off to Fort Ticonderoga. They're aiming to collect the cannons up there and bring them back to headquarters. Paul was surprised. The Ticonderoga cannons. So that's the colonel's secret plan, and a mighty clever one. Those big guns, he said, will be useful when they get here. Toby shot him a grim look. If they get here, lad. If. Paul bridled. I am not worried. The colonel said the colonel will have many a good hand with him. The boatman nodded. Aye, but the one he needs is the hand of Providence. Later, walking home through the dreary streets, Paul heard the church bells again. We're almost done. The mournful ringing troubled him. Old Toby wasn't very hopeful about Colonel Knox's journey. It did seem a bit daft, Paul admitted. Well, nigh unworkable. He turned and looked toward Charlestown and the Mystic River. Somewhere, miles beyond Boston, his friend Will was helping to haul cannons over the mountains to save the rebel cause. It was a dangerous mission and a daring one. But would it succeed or would it end in failure? None can say, chimed the bells. None can say. None can say. So we're getting a little look at what's going on in Boston. So your assignment with this chapter today, I want you to write me a very brief summary based on Toby's report about what is going on with the rebels' efforts to get weapons to supply the American colonists. Okay? I will send you a Google Doc. Have a good day, and I will keep hearing from you, at least digitally. And if you have any questions, please write me on Google Classroom. Bye. I'll see you later.